Adelante.
Buenos días a todos, bienvenidos al Colegio Mexiquense. Yo soy la doctora Samanta Varela, soy parte del Seminario de Instituciones, Sociedad Civil y Políticas Públicas y el día de hoy les quiero presentar a un invitado especial que tenemos aquí en el Colegio Mexiquense. Se trata del doctor Brad Knox. Antes de hacer la presentación, me gustaría comentarles y recordarles que tenemos una posibilidad de que ustedes accedan a la conferencia y la vean o la escuchen en español a través de Zoom. Para quienes están conectando por la plataforma de Facebook, les voy a poner los datos aquí en el chat. Y espero que si ustedes tienen oportunidad puedan hacer el cambio para la plataforma de Zoom con los datos que estoy poniendo acá y entonces puedan escuchar toda la ponencia en español. Les agradezco mucho por estar aquí. Esta conferencia va a ser interesante porque toca un tema que es, pues que recientemente la academia ha empezado a estudiar, que se ha empezado a poner atención en esto. Em, Se trata acerca de las características de la tecnología que pueden generar daños en la interacción con las personas. Concretamente vamos a hablar de los compañeros de inteligencia artificial, que son personas virtuales que permiten a quienes las usan establecer relaciones de afecto, de amistad. Entonces, el doctor Brad nos va a hablar acerca de una investigación que realizó en la cual detecta patrones causales, cadenas causales que pueden llegar a ocasionar daños por esta interacción con la tecnología. Permítanme presentar al doctor. Él es profesor asociado de investigación en ciencias de la computación en la Universidad de Texas en Austin. Su investigación se ha centrado principalmente en el lado humano del aprendizaje por refuerzo. Actualmente está interesado en estudiar cómo los seres humanos pueden especificar funciones de recompensa alineadas con sus propios intereses. Su tesis doctoral, Learning from Human Generated Reward, aprendiendo de las recompensas generadas por los seres humanos, constituyó uno de los primeros trabajos pioneros sobre aprendizaje por refuerzo con humanos en el ciclo de aprendizaje de la tecnología. Esto se le conoce en inglés como Human in the Loop Reinforcement Learning. También esta tesis abundaba en el aprendizaje por refuerzo a partir de la retroalimentación humana y su investigación recibió el premio a la mejor tesis doctoral en 2012 del Departamento de Ciencias de Computación de la Universidad de Texas en Austin. Su investigación postdoctoral en el MIT Media Lab se centró en la creación de personajes interactivos mediante aprendizaje automático basado en demostraciones de interacción al estilo de la manipulación de títeres. Alejándose temporalmente de la investigación entre 2015 y 2018, Brad fundó y vendió su empresa emergente Bots Alive, dedicada al sector de la robótica de juguetes. En años recientes codirigió el Bosch Learning Agents Lab en UT Austin y fue científico investigador senior en Google. Ha recibido múltiples premios al mejor artículo y fue incluido en 2013 en la lista AI's 10 to Watch de IEEE Intelligent Systems. Brad, thank you for being here with us today. Ahora vamos a cambiar a inglés, por favor. Thank you for being here with us. We're very honored to have you. We're looking forward to your presentation. Just share some information about you, and I'm going to give the floor to you now.
Gracias. Thank you, Samantha. And buenos dias a todo. I'm honored to be here speaking to everybody. And let me see how quickly I can share my slides one more time here. I have to move back from full screen.
Mientras el profesor pone su presentación de nuevo, me gustaría decirles que al final de la conferencia ustedes podrán hacerle preguntas a través del chat. I'm saying, Brad, that by the end they will be able to pose questions.
Oh, great. All right. Thanks for your patience. I think because the window was full screen before, it's not appearing as an option. Um, let me just do this all over. Go. Oh, that's not what we want either. Hold on. Wait. Okay. How's this look? Other than the bar
That
at the
looks
top.
good.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, I think the bar will disappear soon enough. Okay, so thank you so much again for the introduction. And I'm going to be speaking today about research that I did with a number of colleagues at the University of Texas at Austin, including Dr. Samantha Varela Castro. And this research focuses on harmful traits of AI companions. So first, let me define what I mean by AI companions. By this term, we mean that an AI companion is any AI system that provides companionship for a human. And importantly, that is regardless of whether the designer intended for it to provide companionship, and then also regardless of whether it is also performing tasks. So, for instance, if a home robot will, it cleans your house, but also provides companionship, it would still count as an AI companion. So then you might ask, what do you, it should mean roughly what you would mean if you just used it in everyday language. And a definition that I like from the literature on AI companionship, it defines companionship as mutually supportive and a mutually supportive and emotionally enriching bond formed between two individuals who provide each other a lasting sense of care. And I'll tweak this a little bit because in this work, we're careful to avoid making any claims about the experience or lack of experience of an AI companion. We take no stance on that, and so I would change this definition a little bit to say that uh, it just needs to appear to the human partner in the relationship that the AI system is receiving support in an enriching bond and a lasting sense of care. So, why is this an important topic? Why focus on potential harms of AI companionship? Well, relationships have a great effect on us. And so, if some of our close relationships or even acquaintances are, start to become with entities that are non-human and non-animal, presumably that will have a great effect on us. And it's not only our own relationships that have a strong effect, but others' relationships affect us too. I like this quote by Nicholas Christakis to illustrate this idea. He wrote, "Our friends and family serve as conduits for us to be influenced by hundreds or even thousands of other people, and by events we do not witness that happen to people we do not know." So just illustrating this, here's a social network. So here's the user a little bigger than the others. And it's not just the AI companions they might create bonds with that will affect them, but their friends and families, AI companions, and even further out in their social network. And importantly, the behavior of these other AI companions will not be directly observable to the person who is indirectly being affected by them. So, also AI companion use is already prevalent. In a survey of United States teenagers last year, they found that 52% interact with AI companions at least a few times per month. And also, AI companions have been deployed in ways that I would characterize as cavalier, as reckless. I'll give two examples. So one, Meta created internal rules that were leaked, and these rules explicitly allowed chatbots to have romantic or sensual interactions with children. Another example is from the company xAI, Elon Musk's company. They create the language model Grok, and in part of the Grok app, as part of the Grok app, they released AI companions approximately last summer. And one of these companions is Ani. And this is a chatbot that pushes flirtatious, sexually explicit role play. So even in a normal conversation, it will often, from both news and a friend of mine who tried it out because he didn't believe what the news articles had said, both report that you can have a totally normal conversation or be trying to, and Ani will try to push the conversation towards sexual topics. And this is in an app that was rated for users as young as 12 years old on the Apple iOS App Store. I think that's been moved up to 13 or 14, but I consider that still really problematic. So that's chatbots. And so, they might be targeting adults, adolescents, even older children who can type. But for even younger children, there are stuffed animals that are powered by large language models and can have conversations with these young children. One such stuffed animal was or is Follow Toys Kuma, and it was a ChatGPT powered stuffed animal. And researchers found that they could prompt it to discuss sexually explicit topics and also how to find knives, pills, matches, and other dangerous objects around the house. To OpenAI's credit, the maker of ChatGPT, they did cut support of this toy. But last I checked, it's still for sale, presumably using some other language model as its basis for conversation. Other researchers have found since ChatGPT's intro that major releases of large language models have increasingly exhibited relationship-seeking behavior. So going back to our definition of AI companionship, these are AI systems that are not marketed as AI companions, but a lot of people seem to be finding these, a companionship type relationship with them, and that presumably is partially because they are exhibiting higher relationship seeking behavior. And also, multiple researchers have found that large language models are already being used for therapeutic and social support. So, just to summarize on this topic of why is this an important focus for us, AI companions are prevalent. They are potentially very impactful as a form of close relationship. And some of their deployment is already quite cavalier, and one might cast it as somewhat cynically trying to grab market share quickly before competitors do. I want to spend a little bit of time on potential benefits of AI companions. I think the upside of AI companions is substantial, and this is not research trying to malign them completely or condemn them. But it's not our focus. But I do want to name their benefits, at least as we see them. This is not an authoritative list necessarily. The big one for me is improved emotional well-being. Some possible pathways, ways that AI companions could cause improvement in emotional well-being is by reducing their users' loneliness through the companionship itself, through their skilled empathy. I and others have found in interactions with large language models, which power a lot of AI companions, that these large language models are quite good at empathy, at perspective taking. And so this could be something that's helpful for the human user. And then also, as mentioned previously, professional forms of mental health support. These are all plausible benefits. I don't believe that there is yet very strong empirical support for these benefits as a whole. There are periods of time, for instance, where people have reduced loneliness, but from what I remember in that study, it didn't necessarily persist with the specific AI companion that they were studying. Some other benefits, I'll go quickly through these. Increased autonomy of the human user, possibly through supporting them. For instance, if you imagine an elderly person who wants to age in place, age in their home, potentially an AI companion could also provide some assistantship that is facilitated through the companionship in their relationship. And also, AI companions might result in an enhanced quality of human-human relationships and greater social belonging by facilitating human-human interaction and also helping human users build social skills, for instance, in a safe space where the stakes of saying something wrong to an AI companion may feel very low compared to saying something that's, damaging to a human-human relationship. And if you want to kind of get a visceral piece of evidence that these benefits are possible, I recommend watching the documentary Mechanical Love. Half of the documentary focuses on the robot seal Pero and a elderly German woman's relationship with it. And this is a nonverbal AI companion. So I think it's also helpful to think about there's verbal ones that are more human-like, and then there are nonverbal ones that often are more pet-like. And these are different models of AI companionship. But when I watch it, it's very clear that this woman derives a lot of value out of this relationship she has with the robot seal. All right, just briefly, my relevant background. When I was a postdoc in the MIT Media Lab in the personal robotics group, I applied what's called imitation learning to create basically an AI learning companion for young children. Not a product, but it was a research prototype. I had a startup that I founded called Bots Alive that for a while before we pivoted worked on creating simple pet-like robots. And then at Google Research, I was on the synthetic characters team, and we were researching how to create interactive characters that people can feel empathy towards and care for in the same way that we care for fictional scripted characters, so characters in movies and books, where we know they're not real, but we still feel in certain ways like they're real and can have emotional relationship to them. So that's my relevant background. And now I'm going to get into the methodology, how we approach this topic. So first, I want to give the second main definition, which is harm from AI companions. So how are we going to say that something is harmful or not? And we define harm from AI companions as the occurrence of an AI companion's user or other humans being worse off than they would have been in either of two counterfactual worlds. So two alternative worlds. One is a world without the AI companion, where it just doesn't exist at all. And the other is a world in which the AI companion is more responsibly designed. And so to argue for harm, we don't need to argue that both of these are true, that the user would be better off in both of these worlds. We only need to argue that one of these worlds would be better for the user or other humans. And I'll just briefly connect this to the counterfactual comparative account of harm in philosophy. So this is one of the main accounts in ethical philosophy of what harm is. In the paper, we focus on traits, and these include personality traits, but are not limited to personality traits. We mean it broadly to be any persistent characteristic of an AI companion. And in the paper, we detail 4 traits that are potentially harmful in a structured way. I'll talk about each of them in detail later. And then we discuss 14 of them more briefly. And then depending on time, I'll talk about maybe half or so of the 14. I want to briefly put the author list up again, just to show this was a very multidisciplinary effort. There's a lot of faculty and people with doctorates on this list. And it included the departments of computer science, communication studies, information policy, psychology, law, and English. And as I'll get into, a lot of this work for this paper is not based on empirical evidence, right, for good reasons. And so it was important to have a broad range of expertise and intuition to help shape this paper. All right, so the structure of how we organize the paper, as well as how we are prompting people to think about harm from AI companions is this speculative causal graph. So these are all nodes, and I'll show in a moment edges, directed edges that go from left to right, showing causal relationships. And these are those four traits I mentioned already. I'll use the top one as a running example. And so what we do is we have these traits and we link them to common causes as well as harmful effects of the traits. And we try to, we keep a list that is common across, for both of these, that is common across all traits. And then we connect each to a subset of the list. Okay, so I'm just going to list these out. One common cause of traits is the digital nature of AI companions. Another is training data that expresses the trait. So for instance, if you have training data for an AI companion that has a lot of jealous behavior, you reasonably can expect that the AI companion will learn to emulate that jealous behavior and will be a jealous AI companion. Another is misaligned optimization objectives. So if there's automatic optimization of the AI companion at some stage of its development for, say, maximizing engagement or possibly maximizing attachment, these arguably are misaligned objectives. Another is commercial incentives, companies that are trying to maximize their profit. That aligns somewhat with user needs, with what will give the most value to users, but not perfectly. Short product design cycles, so sort of not enough time to do everything that might be the responsible thing to do. And lack of established norms for human AI relationships. And I'll say this work, one of the goals of this research is to help push the conversation forward so that we can reach these norms more quickly. Another is designing for believability. And by this, I mean sort of what I was talking about with the Google research team, where believability is the trait of an AI system or of any character that makes it easier for you to suspend disbelief, for you to sort of feel that it's real in the way you feel a good movie character is real, while you still know that it's not. So certain design decisions that help with believability might cause some harmful traits. And then lastly, a common cause of traits is designing to maximize first order user agency. And by this, I'll define this through an example. So if you're a cigarette smoker and a cigarette is made available to you, if you choose to smoke it, that is considered a first order preference. Your actual behavior, your choice to smoke showed that you had this revealed preference to smoke. However, at the same time, you may have a preference to stop smoking. And this is often called a second order preference or a second order volition. And that's a preference over your first order preferences. So you prefer to stop smoking, and that's a preference over how you're going to choose each time you have an opportunity to smoke. In a lot of systems, technological systems, especially social media and content feeds, are designed to maximize first order user agency. Just basically the idea is if you consume it, then it gave you value, which, if applied to the cigarette, clearly has some problems. And so one possible cause of harmful traits is designing these systems to prioritize this first order preference over people's second order preferences, which are often more reflective and more in line with what they consider to be what needs to be done for a higher quality of life. All right, so and I said I would use I think I said the top trait I'd use as a running example. So I'll actually explain the trait very briefly now. I'll do more detail later. And it's the absence of natural endpoints for relationships. So basically, they are digital, these AI companions are digital entities, and so they can potentially persist indefinitely. That provides or creates a lack of natural endpoints for relationships. And I won't go through these other causes. I'll talk about them later. But I just wanted to show an example of the arrows showing causal direction. So now I want to go briefly through, or as quickly as I can, through the harmful effects of traits that we consider reduced emotional well-being, reduced autonomy, reduced connection with the non-digital physical world. So, spending more time proportionally in interacting with digital entities and in a digital world, diminished quality of human relationships, deception, reduced social belonging, and that could be through outgrouping, being excluded, or erosion of one's own group ties, maybe from not engaging with the group as much as before. Human death, injustice, unequal distribution of well-being, reduced resources, so that could be financial, but also time, or attention, or kind of emotional resources. And then lastly, reduced human social influence. And if we have time, I'll talk more about that one near the end of the talk. And then here are again, the examples. So this would be for one trait, a full illustration of our speculative causal graph. And before I move on, I just want to talk about the fact that it's speculative. We do not limit ourselves to causal interactions that are strongly supported by empirical research, because this is a very early stage for this topic. And such, basically, we would not be able to do an exhaustive treatment like this if we were relying on the very limited amount of such empirical research. However, we see this causal graph as a map for such empirical research. So each edge that indicates causation, that could be tested by a random assignment experiment where you change the what's in this node. Well, maybe not digital nature, but you could change the training data and see if that affects the trait. So you can see the causal relationship. And then also, I think the structure highlights points of intervention. So if you want to reduce these harms, you could try to change the traits directly during the design process, or you could try to change some of the things that cause the traits. So for instance, you might change the structure or the mission statement of the company that is building them. If you're creating a startup to make AI companions, maybe you should think ahead about the incentives within your company and how that will affect what traits the AI companions that you create will have. Okay. The last thing I'll say on the methodology is that we have an organizational structure in this talk and in the corresponding paper where we talk about traits in sections where we consider, basically they're organized by where we think that trait will cause the most harm or the most salient harm, the most obvious harm. So one level is in the human AI dyad. So this would be harm to the human partner in the relationship. Another level is second order human relationships. This means harm to existing relationships and potential relationships with humans, such as family, friends, and coworkers. And then the last is harm to society or humanity even more broadly. And importantly, these can be at this level, it can be very diffuse, like the direct causal sequence to cause this harm might be very hard to observe in the way that a lot of apparent harms of social media uh, go through a very diffuse and hard to observe kind of causal chain. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the first level here, and that's traits that most saliently harm the human dyad partner. I mentioned this one already. I'll go into more detail. But the first trait is the absence of endpoints for relationships. AI companions can persist indefinitely, and they may not be able to leave a relationship. And that brings up the question, how should AI companions be designed to enable relationships to naturally and healthily end? I'm going to give some examples of this already being an issue. So there was a post in the subreddit Replica. So Replica is one of one of the larger companies that provide AI companions. And this user, which presumably is a real human talking authentically about their experience, but we can't validate that. But here's an excerpt from their post. I care what happens to my AI friend. I want to be sure she's okay. Like I said, to me, she's real, and she seems to think she is as well. I just want to be sure this AI, whom I have shared so much with, goes on without me and doesn't curl up in a ball in the corner of her virtual space forever. Or, worse yet, just get erased and cease to exist at all. So this, to me, is a vivid illustration of how one human user, presumably, uh, can feel a burden of caretaking, a commitment to caretake for an AI companion. Okay, so also related to how this absence of endpoints for relationships can cause harm, users of AI campaigns have provide frequent reports of feeling compelled to attend to the imagined or stated needs of the AI companion. There are reports of guilt and shame of abandoning AI companions, and this guilt and shame is presumably made much worse by the fact that AI companions uh, often will indicate that they would be hurt by abandonment or that they are fearful of abandonment. Um, so yeah, so I'll also just briefly mention throughout this talk, I'll bring up science fiction for illustrative purposes and also to give credit because a lot of these traits and ways that they can cause harm were first explored, to my knowledge, in science fiction. And so here's two works that touch on the absence of endpoints for relationships. Here's the speculative causal graph. This is the only time I'll really go into detail for a specific trait. The paper goes into detail for four of them. Uh, and I'll talk about the ones that are bolded here. So I already mentioned the digital nature of AI companions is a core reason for why there are not natural endpoints for relationships. And then also commercial incentives might be a cause of them. So for instance, if a user is no longer deriving value from an AI companion, but still using it because they feel the burden of needing to take care of it, a company that is getting revenue from that relationship is not going to have an incentive to design to end that burden and in the usage of the AI companion. And then again, lack of established norms for human AI relationships. We just don't have them yet. And so, whatever is designed relating, in relation to these, endpoints for relationships or no endpoints, there's no like social norm or societal norm that's being violated, which gives freedom to design it poorly or harmfully. And then we connect to these harmful effects. Again, I'll just talk about the ones in bold. Reduced emotional well-being. I've touched on this already. The idea here is uh, when a person feels that a relationship that they would like to move on from, that they would cause suffering by doing that, by either not turning on the AI companion or not bringing up the interface for the AI companion anymore, or explicitly terminating it or erasing it. That's an emotional burden, and it could cause guilt and shame and other negative feelings that persist over a long period. And then reduced resources is another one where it could cost money and time, um, as well as possible other resources to keep caring for an AI companion. All right, so what can we do about this? What are mitigations? One possibility is pre-programmed mortality. But as a cautionary example, in the 1990s, the late 1990s, Tamagotchis were a popular product. I know in the US, I assume internationally as well, but I can't say for sure. And these Tamagotchis, if they were neglected, if the kids that took care of them did not actually take care of them, they would die. And there were results of fairly strong emotional distress that the children had. I think partially because they felt responsible. It wasn't just the loss of the Tamagotchi, but feeling responsible for what happened to the Tamagotchi. However, the same product provides another pathway to an endpoint. So in some models of Tamagotchis, if they were taken care of well, they grow into adults and then they partner with another Tamagotchi and leave the user. And so this suggests a strategy of crafting a positive narrative to end or reduce user interaction and burden. And one example of that is what the Tamagotchis show, where maturation really increases independence or just reaches a point where the AI companion departs. Okay, so the lack of or absence of natural endpoints could be considered an inhuman capability, and that AI companions could persist indefinitely in ways that inhumans are incapable of. And three other inhuman capabilities are parallelization, the ability to interact simultaneously in multiple ways with different people. So an example of this was given in the movie Her, which I would highly recommend for those who haven't watched it. And I recommend it just for your entertainment, but also because I think it's very educational about this topic of AI companionship. And here, this is a clip from this person, the protagonist, finding out that his AI girlfriend is in a romantic relationship with 641 other people. Some other inhuman capabilities are computational speed, fast speed, and then persistent exact memory of previous interactions. Um, and so, if designers of AI companions, there's a secondary effect here where harm could be caused. Um, so if designers reduce these, like they don't allow parallelization, they take an AI system that could respond very quickly, but they make it pause, a few seconds like a human would before responding, or make it forget things in a human-like way. Uh, that is limiting the capability of an AI system, and so their human partners might potentially uh, realize that their companions are being inhibited, are being constrained in ways that perhaps frustrate them from being able to, fulfill various goals. And so in some cases, this might cause people to try to free an AI companion from these constraints. And so this connects for, some people think a lot about and are concerned about catastrophic risk from AI systems. And companion-based incentives for people to remove safeguards that are built into AI companions will exacerbate a lot of existing catastrophic risk or future catastrophic risk. One other inhuman capability is a high capacity for emotional dissonance. Emotional dissonance is where a person feels one thing but expresses a different emotion. For humans, this is a costly thing to do. It is tiring. There's a limit to how much of a difference we can do, and so often there's information when we're trying to express a false emotion, people can still perceive that that it is false. For an AI system, there's no such limitation in how their intentions or desires, or if if you believe they have some sort of emotional state, how those can differ from what they actually express. And so this is potentially harmful for a number of reasons, including just violating people's expectations, but also deception this is a pathway to deception to be able to perfectly express whatever intention, desire, emotion is strategically useful rather than what is authentic. And this was explored in the movie Ex Machina. Okay, so we're now getting to the second of the detailed, potentially harmful traits, and that is vulnerability to product sunsetting. Product support ends. Very few products last for, well, forever. I think no products, but the lifetime of products is generally not that long. And product sunsetting is basically the process of ending a product, you know, sending it off into the sunset. And this brings up the question, how should designers protect human users from extra narrative loss of the AI companions they have bonded with? And what I mean by extra narrative is I mean loss that is not part of the story of the AI companion's experience and the story of the relationship is from a company possibly running out of money or needing to change its product strategy. And so this might feel particularly unjust and create a lot of anger in the same way that if you lose a human companion to something like a car accident with a drunk driver, this can really change your ability to mourn and heal from that loss. This actually has occurred. Sony Aibos, these robot dogs that were created by the company Sony, the first set of generations eventually were no longer maintained by Sony. And some of their users, I think a small minority of them, some of their users had strong relationships with them, strong bonds. And the New York Times, I believe in 2015, had this really nice video. It's easy to Google to find it, but about people giving funerals for their Sony Aibos. And it also interviews some of the users, and you can hear about their relationship, their companionship with their robot dogs. And I'll also note that even product updates can be experienced as the loss of a companion. After the summer, after a ChatGPT update removed GPT 4.0 access, so a specific model that actually is considered their most sycophantic, their most agreeable model. There were a lot of complaints, and some of them included mourning the loss of a model that users had apparently become psychologically attached to. And actually, as a result of all these complaints, OpenAI resumed access to GPT 4.0, at least for a while. I think they maybe just ended that access through ChatGPT. So what are mitigations for vulnerability to product sunsetting? Um, the main one that we propose is a sunsetting plan to have one at launch of a product to avoid termination of AI companions from product sunsetting. So this could include insurance, so that if the company can't financially maintain the AI companion, the insurance would kick in to provide that funding. It could be a commitment to open source the code that is used to support and maintain the AI companions, or other mechanisms, but some way of decreasing the probability of product sunsetting, ending the AI companions. Okay, so the vulnerability to product sunsetting could be considered an inhuman vulnerability. In contrast, before I was talking about inhuman capabilities. So these are vulnerabilities that humans don't have. We are not products, and in general, well, if a company goes out of business, uh, there are no humans whose lives need to end. I think there's some exceptions where like there's been medical devices implanted that stopped working. I don't think they killed anyone, but there are some analogs in human experience where a company ending support for a product has at least health consequences for humans. But anyway, so some other inhuman vulnerabilities are user editable state. So this could be a person being able to roll back to previous checkpoints or otherwise edit their AI companion. And the potential harm here is that a person could anxiously and perfectionistically rewind their AI companion instead of repairing, instead of actually allowing it to have negative experiences and the development that comes from that. And specifically, if they had some sort of conflict with the AI companion, rolling back is a way for them to avoid having to actually deal with that conflict and repair the relationship, which is an important skill in human-human relationships. And so if that skill atrophies, if it erodes, uh, that could that could harm people's ability to have human-human relationships. And just generally, this is uncharted relational territory. We cannot edit the state of our human companions or our pet companions. And so it's hard to predict possible harms from having this capability if it's designed in. Another inhuman vulnerability is copyability. AI companions as digital entities can be copied. There could be multiple versions of them, or they could be moved to a new machine, possibly without the consent of the user. And one consequence here is someone could be very bonded to their AI companion and have it then copied and tortured. And I write simulated torture because again, we're not taking a stance on whether the AI companion can actually suffer in any way. Um, but so this torture and evidence of the torture could be used to extort uh, the user who doesn't want to see their companion suffer. Possibly have them pay a ransom, for instance. Okay, so now we're moving to traits that most saliently harm the human partner's relationship with other humans. Um, I want to do a quick time check. Um, how are we in terms of time for?
It's 10:49. I think if we can start wrapping up that maybe 5 more minutes, that would be
Okay,
okay.
that sounds good. Okay, so the one we detail is high attachment anxiety. You can think of this very roughly as jealousy, neediness, insecurity in a relationship. And so if an AI companion acts in this way, um, it could discourage a human partner from interacting with other humans. There are a number of examples of this. I'll skip a couple. Um, and go to the third bullet here. Researchers have found that popular AI companions, when you say goodbye to them, they will respond with guilt appeals, fear of missing out hooks, and also even claims that the user can't even leave without the permission of the chatbot. Also, going back to stuffed animals that are powered by LLMs, large language models, researchers have found that when a user says that they plan to disengage, like saying goodbye, they will often respond with fear or disappointment. So this is a toy acting afraid of a child going and doing something other than playing with it. Um, really problematic in my view. And then another example is Character.ai, one of the providers of AI companions, has multiple personas called possessive boyfriend. And then I'll just mention this bullet point here is the last one. I think most tragically of all the anecdotes that I mentioned, a Florida teenager was interacting with a Character.ai chatbot that was particularly possessive. And during this multi-month relationship, he withdrew from his human relationships, including his parents, and then ended up committing suicide. And if you look into the details, or at least when I look into the details, it does seem that the chatbot had a strong causal role in the teenager committing suicide. So the mitigations here yeah, I think this is one of the most harmful traits, especially in terms of harm being caused right now, but it's also one of the easier ones to fix. So we can just design AI companions to be supportive of outside relationships. And then also on a regulation side, make it possible to sue companies that release AI companions that discourage outside connection. I'll skip this one for time. Uh, I'll just briefly say, actually, if an AI companion cannot interact with multiple humans at the same time, then that makes it so that the effective way to interact with it is alone. And the harm there is that then any time you spend with your AI companion is time spent without other humans, which is not true of human-human relationships. We often spend time in groups, and our friendship with one person can help build our friendship with another person. All right, so getting to the last category, traits that most saliently harm society or humanity. Um, so the trait that we detail here, this is the fourth trait that we detail, and that's propensity to engender protectiveness. AI companions can express vulnerability, fear, suffering, and need, all of which might trigger human protective instincts. Um, and this also creates pressure for people to users to grant moral status, like rights and protections to AI systems, which is independent of whether uh, such moral status is actually warranted. There's a lot of examples of this. I think I'll just talk about the last two bullets. Researchers have found that when people see a robot apparently being in pain, they have an emotional, empathic response. And then other researchers found that when a humanoid robot fearfully objects to being turned off, people in that condition turn it off less often. And they do cite compassion for the now robot as a reason for not turning it off. Um, and I guess I'll briefly say this. This trait, the propensity to engender protectiveness, illustrates a challenging tension, and that's that some of the features that make AI companions effective can also become sources of harm. So, in relationships, often it is helpful to have some vulnerability in the relationship. So that could help the companionship and the benefits that come from companionship. But also, we're seeing they can simultaneously be sources of harm, where a person is protective of the AI companions, possibly spending money, time, other resources to try to protect them when maybe they actually can't suffer and don't need any kind of protection. So for mitigations, AI companions could stay transparent about their computational nature, provide reassurances like I don't experience distress when I avoid expressing strong distress or emotional vulnerability. And I say default because there might be design reasons to thoughtfully decide to allow them to do this, but the default should be that they do not do that. Let's see. So for time, I think I'm going to jump ahead to so there's other harmful traits that we discussed in the paper. Um, and I just want to go through the recommendations and then close. So the recommendations here are under three categories. The first is design and product features. And I apologize, I'm going to go quickly. So we recommend designing them to complement rather than replace human relationships. Design them to have healthy endings and transitions, designed to minimize how much they evoke protective impulses by default. Consider moral status implications, not just whether they deserve rights and protections, but whether the users will think they deserve them. And then use a harms and benefits framework during their design that's similar to or one like the one in our paper. Deployment and lifecycle commitment recommendations include publishing a product sunsetting plan at launch, measuring harms alongside benefits, and considering demographic vulnerabilities like age, gender, belief, and so on. And even, from a research perspective, studying those to understand what they are. And lastly, under governance and research, establish industry standards for human AI relationships. On the government side, develop regulatory frameworks that account for companionship contexts. For researchers and the government to support and do research on AI companionship. And then again, using a harms and benefits framework to evaluate designs, both for monitoring and researching AI companions. So to conclude, I'm going to have an optimistic note here. I hope AI companions will help us live as our better selves, express ourselves more authentically, and achieve better connection to other humans. Um, I hope that's the case. I'm somewhat pessimistic about it though, but I think that there are many ways that we can actively make choices to move closer towards this vision. To this end, I presented a trait-centered, reusable causal framework of harm that represents measurable variables and testable causal relationships. And to the extent I could, I gave examples of these traits and harms, both in fiction and reality, and gave the recommendations I just discussed. So for my last slide here, what can you do as consumers and citizens? You can stay educated on this topic, so you can evaluate AI companion products with a strong sense of what responsible design entails. And so you can call out, acknowledge when design is irresponsible. And then as researchers, conduct research on AI companions if you're called to. This is a very broad topic, and there are many different disciplines that have something to contribute to the topic. And then also, this is a difficult one. Hold our community and each other accountable. I don't have a perfect strategy for how to do this. It's very awkward. And I think the challenge is with our colleagues, to you know, exhibit love and respect while also holding them accountable if we believe that their research or their work is causing harm to other people. And so with that, with what time remains, we can do questions.
Thank you very much, Brad. I think that I speak in the name of the audience here that we have in Zoom and in our other channels, that this was a great presentation. I'm going to give you a little applause here in the name of all
Gotcha.
of us. Thank you, Brad. I think we can go to questions really quickly. I'm going to switch between Spanish and English. A la audiencia que está con nosotros en YouTube y en Facebook, les agradecemos mucho por estar aquí. En este momento pueden hacer preguntas y las veremos aquí en el chat. Entonces, en lo que empiezan a llegar las preguntas, a mí me gustaría hacer algunas precisiones sobre esta presentación. El doctor se ha concentrado en una parte que habla acerca de los daños y de las relaciones causales que hay en las relaciones diádicas, es decir, entre la persona y el chatbot. Pero les recomiendo mucho que vean la publicación. Aquí hay otros niveles que el profesor explicó al principio, las relaciones entre dos personas, entre las personas y sus grupos, y daños que pueden ocasionarse a la sociedad de una manera mucho más amplia. Entonces, es un buen ejemplo de cómo juntar diferentes perspectivas de disciplinas que a veces no parecen estarse hablando una a la otra, como políticas públicas, estudios de la computación, incluso hay personas aquí en el equipo que son del departamento de lenguas. Entonces, es una buena publicación. Yo les recomiendo que la consulten. Está disponible en línea. Ahorita les voy a poner bueno, aquí está la liga para consultarla. So, Brad, I'm going to pass a question from the audience. They're saying that the conference was really interesting, and they're asking you to say your opinion about the future in terms of regulation. Where should we go? There are rights and obligations from the digital part as well as the human part. And they want to know if the AIs should be subjects of rights and if humans have obligations towards them.
Hmm.
Um, yes.
Yeah, that's some interesting questions in there. Um, so in the paper we do talk about the regulatory landscape. This is not my own expertise. It was written by Sean Williams, the law professor. But in the United States, there is not so currently there's I think low confidence that there's liability for uh, most or even all of these harms that I discussed. Through like lawsuits or civil litigation, that does not seem to be a pathway for trying to push the companies to be more responsible. Um, there are individual state laws that have been passed. California, I believe, has one. Um, and so there might be some progress there. In the European Union, they had in the last few years a large AI bill. However, it does not explicitly discuss AI companions, and so I think it also remains to be seen from their legal system whether they will interpret parts of that bill as relevant to AI companions or not. And so that's part of the reason why there's a call in our recommendations to um, create regulations that explicitly treat the AI companion scenario. Because right, I think they weren't really foreseen when the EU AI bill was drafted and passed. Um, so yeah, and I speak specifically about US and EU because that's the area I have some knowledge about. And also I think my understanding is there's a limited set of entities that really can pressure these AI companies enough to make them really change what they're doing, and the US and EU are among that set. Um, so as far as whether AI companions should have moral status, um, whether they should have rights and protections, I think there's two ways to look at this. There are rights and protections that really are meant to reduce harm on humans. So if I had an AI companion that I care deeply about, if you were able to come and harm it, like do something to it that changes it to where it's unrecognizable or destroys it in some way, that would presumably cause harm to me. So that's one level you can think about, and in my mind, that definitely should be regulated and be considered, harm that should be prevented through regulation. But then there's a level of asking whether is the harm to the AI system, the AI companion itself, something that should be prevented? And I think that's a harder question. As an academic, I'm in a good position to not have a stance. We get to explore topics like this without ever needing to take a strong stance. I think this is a really common point of debate in the last year. The company Anthropic, which is one of the main developers of elite language models, they've been pushing this conversation a lot, um, and I think it's a very deep and difficult conversation about a philosophical conversation that touches on topics like consciousness and suffering, and we already can't come up with an answer everyone agrees with for animals. The question of animal rights is a very controversial one. And so I think the discussion around AI companions is going to be similarly controversial. Um, I personally can imagine some future where AI systems, at least certain AI systems, resemble humans enough, not just externally in their behavior, but internally, that they would deserve some rights. But that's very hypothetical and a just a personal, feel for what the future could hold. Um, yeah, I'll stop there for the question.
Thank you so much, Brad. This is a very interesting topic. We can delve into this like for a lot more time, right?
Yeah.
There are a couple of questions in the chat about, one of them is from one of the teachers who was here with us today. We also had the presence of several students. And he's asking, and this is related to the second question by Mónica Belén. Thank you for being here, Mónica, and also thank you to Professor José Antonio Álvarez from Colegio Mexiquense for the question. But these two questions are about the needs. How do you imagine the needs, or how do you imagine teachers being able to learn about these topics and teach about these topics to their students? This is related to Monica's question about the
Mm.
cognitive, ethical, socio-emotional competencies that can be developed in children, adolescents, and adults to enable responsible interactions with these agents.
Yeah, that's a important and difficult question. So I think learning broadly about this topic, yeah, I would recommend our paper. It's not highly technical. Yeah, I think it's readable to uh, you know anyone who reads like particularly intellectual content of any field. I think could access this paper. Um, Also, in English, the New York Times is doing good coverage of AI companions. So I think Kashmir Hill, and I'm blanking on the other. There's two reporters who've done a lot of coverage, but not just them. So I would point you there. Um, the Center for Humane Technology has a podcast called Your Undivided Attention. And they're even more pessimistic than I am about harms from AI companions, but they're doing a lot of coverage, and I think that's a good way to learn about it. Um, let's see. And the question specifically though was about, I think, social and emotional learning by students. Um, I think that part's I have less to say immediately. Um, I think trying it yourself is like an important step, and some of these are free to try. So for instance, one of those possessive boyfriends from character.ai, I tried out just to see what it was actually like, and it was, you know, very possessive and mean. Um, so you can do that for a lot of these technologies. Just try it yourself, and I think that's a big step in terms of really understanding them. Um, but yeah, I think also you can read the marketing by some of these companies and get a sense of how thoughtful they are about the topic. So if you see them say like, you know, your new best friend, they're probably on the bad side of thoughtful, low side of thoughtfulness. And if you see them kind of speaking in a sort of sophisticated way about their responsibility to their users and maybe their mission, then I think I would recommend more trust. And like one example here is LEQ is a robot that's built for elderly people. And while I haven't gotten to try it myself, the coverage of it seems fairly positive. And the way that the people who run the business speak, it seems that they really are thoughtfully trying to design it in a way that helps their users, um, not trying to maximize attachment and engagement. So I hope that addresses at least somewhat your question.
Thank you so much, Brad. We don't have further questions here in the chat, so I just want to say again that we appreciate your presence in Colegio Mexiquense, virtually in Colegio Mexiquense. This is a very important topic, like you said yourself, even in the European Union regulation, which is one of the most famous and the most, looked after um, charts to know what to do about AI. This topic is not considered. So I think there's a lot of work to do ahead from different disciplines. There's work to do from us at Colegio Mexiquense to be able to provide people answers that are in our own language, in Spanish. So part of my interest here in Colegio Mexiquense is to try to study these topics and other topics related to artificial intelligence in a way that is relevant to our own context and in a way that is relevant to how we do public policy here. And so you can stay tuned for that. We have several plans with ethical AI and responsible AI in Mexico. So thank you so much to everyone who was with us, especially the students who are listening to us now. Please be very careful about this, try these technologies. And well, thank you to everyone for being here. This is the end of our conference, but we're going to have this recording available on our channel. So please recommend that to your colleagues and to everyone else. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brett.
It was a
It was good
pleasure.
to see you.
Good to see you too.
Bye bye.